Hey y'all, today I want to talk about something I've been interested in lately, mid-side stereo, and specifically how it can be used in synthesis and sound design. In mid-side stereo, you use math and phase cancellation to perform kind of stereo black magic, essentially. And the ideas of mid-side recording and mixing are pertinent to the resurgence of interest in Ambisonics too. So I'm going to talk about the basics here, and then I'm going to give some demonstrations in pure data, Reaktor, and on a modular synth. Check out the time codes if you want to jump around. But as always, I'm hoping to focus on the concept here rather than any particular software or hardware. So for a definition, mid-side stereo is a way of recording, representing, and processing stereo audio where, rather than having one channel for the left and one for the right, the audio for the left and right are encoded into two channels, one channel that's the sum of the left and the right, and one channel that's the difference. This sum of the left and right is called the mid, and we call the difference the side. This comes from a recording technique where you can take a cardioid microphone and a bidirectional microphone and record stereo in this mid-side way. Unlike normal stereo, where when you record with two microphones you pan one to the left and pan one to the right, you consider the cardioid or the omnidirectional microphone the mid and the bidirectional as the sides, and you decode these into stereos using math. Mid plus side for the left, mid minus side for the right. Now, you might have some plugins that can work in mid-side processing too. And this is the same idea. It takes your existing stereo file, does the math to convert it into mid-side, and then allows you to process that mid and side separately. This can be used to increase stereo width or create other effects with the relationship of the mid and the sides. Mid-side processing is used a lot in mastering. Now, I'm not a mastering engineer, I'm a composer and sound designer, but we can absolutely bring these techniques into our sound design. Think about all the sound that doesn't get to the true mastering phase. Live performances, interactive audio for video games. We can bring in these spatialization techniques here too. Just so we can hear this, I've made a quick demo in Reaktor. Now I'm going to talk through later about how to build this, but for now let's just listen. I strongly recommend headphones or a good set of stereo speakers. If you're listening to this all on a mono speaker like through a phone, you're not going to hear any of the stuff that I'm talking about. So you might go grab your cans now. Okay, so here I've just got two oscilloscopes. This is the mid, this is the side. All this Reaktor ensemble is doing is splitting out the mid and sides and then putting them back together. So right now I've split into mid and side and I'm putting it back together exactly as it started. So, just to show an example, if I just run those out, boom, no change in the sound. So I can now control the mid and the side independently. So listen what happens when I turn down my side here. When I turn the side down to 0, we've got no stereo information at all. We just have the mono center going on. And as I bring up the sides, then we can hear that side. Now, interestingly, check out what happens when I turn on the mid. Okay, so if you're listening on headphones, this probably doesn't really sound like stereo because our left and right are just the same thing 180 degrees out of phase. This perception of left and right is dependent on the middle being there. If you didn't pay attention to me and you're listening to this on a mono speaker, you're probably hearing nothing if it's just adding the left and the right together because they're just going to phase cancel themselves out to nothing. Let me turn up the mid a little bit here. Now with a little bit of that mid, we do hear this wider stereo idea. Again, back down to mono. So now let's look at these waveforms and think a little bit about what's happening. And then once we understand that, we can implement this in our own synthesizers. Okay, so here I'm looking at a left and a right channel that both have the same sine wave in it. So if I were to convert this to mid-side, what happens? Well, up until now I've been using a kind of shorthand. The mid is actually the left divided by 2 plus the right divided by 2. if you look at this, if you were to add this left and the right, you would immediately get clipping, right? So I'm not going to walk through what I did in Audacity just because it's kind of boring, but I'll show you the before and after. So here's left and right. What I did was I reduced them both by 6 decibels, right, halving the amplitude, and then I added them together. And then for the side, I took the left minus the right. And the result I got was this. Put these both up at the same time. Left, right, converted to mid, side. So the left plus the right, again, the left divided by 2 plus the right divided by 2 is just going to give me the same thing because these were the same. Because they're the same, when I subtract the right from the left, I get silence. What happens then when I decode this? Okay, well then the left is going to be the mid plus the side, so okay. And then the right is going to be the mid minus the side. Once again, the same thing. Any number minus 0 is going to be that number. All right, let's check out this. Now here I've got them all in the same project, but here's my left, here's my right. This time, I've got the sine wave panned hard to the left, and nothing is going on the right. Sorry, it's off center there for some reason. I must have zoomed in, but this is just silence here. So now we take the left divided by 2 plus the right divided by 2, and we get a sine wave at half the amplitude. Okay, the left divided by 2 minus the right divided by 2. Okay, since this is 0, once again, we're going to get the same thing. When we decode this back out into stereo, this plus this equals this. This minus this, perfect phase cancellation, is going to be silence. Last one, sine wave panned hard to the right. Again, left, right, encoded into mid side. This divided by 2 plus this divided by 2 is going to be this. This divided by 2 minus this divided by 2 is going to be the same thing, only phase inverted, right? So this one goes down first and this one goes up first. Let's put it back together into left and right. This plus this, silence. This minus this, so you're subtracting the opposite of it. You're going to get something twice as loud. Okay, that's pretty neat. But in reality, when we're working with mid-side, we're not working with just simple sine waves and hard panning. So let's look at something a little bit more sophisticated. All right, so here I have a square wave in the left and a sawtooth wave in the right, and they're slightly detuned from each other. Let's play that. Okay, that was pretty loud, but you get the idea. Okay, so now let's see what happens. Again, divide this by 2, divide this by 2, add them together. Okay, now we can see more interesting patterns of constructive and destructive interference in the mid, and once again in the sides too. But if we reconstitute this back, then we're going to get the same thing. Okay, so what, right? All I've done now is I've converted stereo into something and converted it back. What is interesting, though, is when we convert to mid-side, perform some kind of operation and then convert it back. So check this out. Okay, left, right, converted to mid, side. But then what I did is I took the sides and I ran them through a high pass filter. And so now when I add these back together, everything's changed. Left, right, original, left, right, after filtering. So let's check this out. I'm going to mute that mid side. We don't need to listen to that. Left, right. Back to the original. Processed. Okay, that's kind of neat. It's a little bit hard to hear. So what I want to do is I'm going to move over to my modular synthesizer for a sec, and let's hear what happens when we make these changes in real time. I'm starting with a modular synthesizer because I don't have to actually program anything like I'm going to do next in Pure Data and Reaktor. So we can just plug in some wires and listen to the results before we move on to building these from scratch. Okay, I know how modular synth demonstrations can get pretty overwhelming pretty quickly. All I'm going to be using here is 1, 2, 3, 4 modules, and then this is just sequencing things. So for those of you who are interested, I'll list what these modules are in the description, but once again, I'm not sponsored by anyone. There are multiple ways to accomplish this. Once again, I want to focus on the concept, not the hardware. So what I have right here is this is just two oscillators. This is a dual oscillator, saw on the left, saw on the right. Actually, it's got a little bit of square in there. If I really wanted to do saw on the left, saw on the right. There we go. Now we've just got saw on the left, saw on the right. They're slightly detuned from each other. I can start them going in a sequence. Okay, again, so just normal stereo here. Now, what I'm gonna do to make my mid side is I'm gonna use this, which is a precision adder. Now, there are other things that do this, but basically A, B, A plus B, A minus B, C, D, C plus D, C minus D. And I've also got a jumper going on, so actually this is A, B, A divided by 2, B divided by 2. Again, it's minus 6 decibels, but again, same idea. Okay, so let's use pink for our right. Sorry, left. Pink for our left. One of these days I'll learn my left and my right. Blue from the right. Mid, then goes into C. Side, then goes into D. And then we can do, oh, and by the way, I wanted to do just the saws there. Keep making that mistake. So we should be hearing just the same thing, right? Once again. All we're doing is turning it into mid-side and then turning it back again. The fun comes when we start to process that mid and side. So I have a filter here, and this is a saturator. Let's start with our filter. So I'm gonna take the side here. So now we're just listening to the mid at the moment. But then we'll take the side, we'll run it into the filter, and out of the high pass of the filter. Now this is great, because I am a cheapskate, and I have a stereo oscillator, but I don't have a stereo filter. Now with the mid-side, I can do stereo processing with my mono filter here. Now granted, this is a slightly different processing than I would have with a stereo filter, but still. Remember though that our mid and side aren't really mid and sides, right? They're all working together to create this phase relationship that makes the stereo image. Now what I'm doing is I'm altering part of that phase relationship, the side information. But I think that sounds pretty great. Okay, let's put this back together. Back to normal. Now, let's take our mid out. So once again, this is just the sides. And let's run the mid through a saturator. Okay, so this is a more subtle effect. Turning it up. Okay. Oops. Just the mid again. And then we'll take mids going through the saturator. Sides through the filter. So now I'm doing a lot to these mid and sides, right? And so one of the things they tell you with mid-side mastering and mid-sided mixing is you don't want to overdo it because you can ruin your stereo image. Now, because we're at the sound design step, the synthesis step, we can make the stereo image that we want. And then later it's going to be placed in the mix or placed in the arrangement or placed in the game, however we're using it. So we don't have to worry about if we're ruining it. We're just having fun. right, you're probably getting sick of that loop. So if that's how we do it on a modular synth, let's go over and let's start building these things in Pure Data and Reaktor. All right, so let's build some mid-side processing into PD. You may have already figured this out, but let's just walk through it. Let me turn on my DSP real quick here. I'm just gonna make the mid-side part before I make anything that makes sound, just so we're clear on what part is doing what. Let me start, Command 1, multiply tilde 0.5. So remember, we need to have both the left and the right, so I can actually go Command D. So left will come in here, right will come in here. And then Command 1 plus tilde. So now this is our adding. And then I did Command D there, didn't have to. Minus tilde. Okay, so left plus right. Left minus right. Command 5, right. Command 5, left. And then at this point, Command D, this is going to be my mid, and this one is going to be my side. Okay, so that's all I need to encode things into mid-side. Okay, so once I have that encoder, all I need is a decoder. So let's go Command D here. And then Command D there. Mid plus side is going to be the left. Mid minus side is going to be the right. So let's do Command 1, DAC, that's going to be my output. Left, right. Okay, well, this is all theoretically well and good, but let's make something real quick to make some stereo sound. I'm going to blast through this pretty quick. If you don't have any experience in Pure Data, I have some videos getting started. What I'm going to do is sort of a cross between a couple of my videos. Let me just make something that's randomly making notes for me. So Shift Command T for a toggle, Command 1 for a metro. Let's have it go on for, I don't know, 100 milliseconds. Shift Command B, a bang, so we can see the output. We're going to use this output, Command 1, to choose a random number, 0 through 87. Command 1 plus 21, that gives us the range of the piano. Command 3. So there we go. We're just seeing those random piano keys come through. Command 1, M to F, MIDI to a frequency. Command 1, OSC, that's just an oscillator. And so now we can run this into the left. Had my sound down there, there we go. Okay, all coming out the left. And so we only hear it coming out the left, so probably our encoding and decoding process here is going well. Just for interest's sake, Command 1, let's now take the right, take this note, add 7, right, so that's a perfect fifth, M to F, and an oscillator. Okay. Okay, so we've got random notes coming out the left speaker, and then random notes, a perfect fifth up, coming on the right. All right. So now, disconnect this side. Okay, so now that's just the mono image of it. Let's now take this side, go Command 1, multiply tilde. Now we can take this, add it to the equation, and then, well, let's do it this way. Command 3 for a number, Command 1, multiply 0.01, no tilde on that multiply, right? So I'm just taking this number and bringing it down to be a fraction. Command E. Now I can slowly turn up the side. So at 100, that's what we started with, right? 100 times 0.01 is going to be 1, so we're multiplying it by 1. Back down. If I go below 0 here, it's going to invert. So now the higher notes, the notes a fifth up, are on the left, and the lower notes are on the right. Okay, so let's make something that we can trigger this. So I have a bang, that goes into a message. I guess the bang is redundant there, but let's have this go to 100 over 1 second. And if you haven't guessed, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a line. I think I've done that right. Let's find out. Right, so now I have buttons that spread the stereo image over time. Okay, well, we could make that more interesting. We could make it over 5 seconds. So there we go, that's kind of neat. Now I'm just doing something simple, I'm just changing the amplitude here, but there are any number of ways that you could process this. You could filter it, you could add a delay here. The more extreme processing you do, the more chance you have of losing this whole mid-side idea. Once again, we're working creatively with this, so maybe that doesn't stress us out, but it's worth considering as we consider our expressive goals. Just because it's clearer, because I use fewer objects, let me jump over to Reaktor and demonstrate a couple other ideas. Okay, in the interest of time, I've set up something here. Like we did in the modular synth, I have 2 sawtooth waves here. They're controlled by note, pitch, and gate, so I can play on my keyboard. And then I've taken one of these sawtooth waves and detuned it. So it's a saw FM, and in the F here, I've got a 3 for 3 hertz. So one of these sawtooths is always 3 hertz higher. The one on the right is always 3 hertz higher than the one on the left. Gives us this stereo saw sound. And then scope-wise, we're just looking at the left here and looking at the right. All right, I'm going to delete my wires. And let's once again build our mid-side splitter, multiply, create constant, 0.5. So once again, we're halving each of these sine waves. So I need one of those for each. Boom. Need an add and a subtract. So this is going to be our add and subtract to encode to mid-side. We're going to need another set of those to decode. Left plus right. Left minus right. Left plus right is mid. Side. Mid. Side. Mid plus side is left. Mid minus side is right. Okay, so once again, we should be hearing the exact same thing. Built-in module. Let's add in a filter. Filter. Keep it simple for now. Multi-tuple. In. Let's use the high pass first. I'm going to move this so it's a bit more clear, my flow. Okay, so now we're just filtering the sides. Let's create some controls for that. Okay, clean up our panel. And let's check it out. I can see I'm getting a little bit of clipping. It's because these saws are at the maximum, right? And then I'm adding some resonance. It's kind of sloppy work, but I can turn them down here. I feel better if I'm not getting that clipping in there. Okay, that's pretty neat. Now I can do any number of things here. Let's do a delay. Now, first, I can just delay the sides, right? Like not do a feedback delay, just literally make them slower. So let's check that out. So here it is, delay of 0. So this is going to mean just basically what goes in, what goes out. Now let's slowly bring up this delay. It's kind of an interesting stereo effect. Quickly falls apart as we get higher there, but it's a neat kind of chorusing idea, maybe. All right, now let's do a feedback delay. So what we're going to do, let's take the direct, add it to the delay, then send that out here and here. Now we're going to take the delayed sound, let's multiply it to attenuate it. Create constant. I'm just going to pick an arbitrary number, 0.6. So that's going to be my feedback. And I'm going to take that. I'm going to add that to the input. So now the input goes in here, but also the feedback goes in here. Once again, I've talked about this in a different video about delays in Reaktor. I'll throw up the link up here and then in the description if you're interested. Let's check this out. Okay, that's got too short a delay. Now, once again, I hope you're listening through headphones. This is an interesting delay effect, right? Because the delay is only on the sides here. The mid isn't delayed. Once again, if you were to fold this down into mono, the sides would completely cancel each other out, so you wouldn't actually end up with any of this delay effect. Of course, we could combine the filter and the delay. Let me think about where I would put that. We could put it in the feedback chain here. So we'll add back in built-in module, filter. Oh, I did the wrong one, but that's okay. I'm not going to use the FM. The delay goes in here. The high pass will go into our feedback. Create control for our res. And then, as I said, I'm going to leave that one alone. Clean up my panel. Oops, and I've got the delay control in there too. Oops, I've got it feeding back a little bit too much there. I'm going to turn down that resonance. But you get the general idea. Again, you could do any effect you want in here. Add a little bit of distortion, compression. The more extreme, the more likely you are to maybe break down your stereo image a little bit. But if we're thinking about this for creative applications, maybe that doesn't matter. I've got to stop myself because I've already gone on long enough, but the next steps on this are thinking about how this can be done with Ambisonics. An ambisonic ambix or fuma file is basically the same thing as a mid-side. Only you've got mid, and then front back, left right, and up down. But we could do the same thing. You could run a high-pass filter on XYZ and leave your W and achieve similar effects. Or you could just compress your W. Or how about run the same reverb on your XYZ while leaving your W unchanged? I encourage you to mess around, try this out. It's super easy. You don't need any special equipment. For Ambisonics, well, maybe you'd need a way to decode your Ambisonics, but there are lots of options to decode those into binaural too. But play with this, have some fun with your sound design, and let me know what you come up with.